In the heart of a quiet New Jersey town, a terrible secret remained hidden for years, a secret so profound it stunned everyone who eventually uncovered it. A young girl, barely a child, was held captive by the very people who were supposed to protect her. Locked inside a dog cage, isolated from the world, her existence reduced to a life of darkness, pain, and silence. For 7 long years, she endured conditions no one should ever face. This is not a story of distant horrors or distant places. This nightmare unfolded just miles from where families lived their everyday lives, beneath the surface of ordinary streets and homes. The walls of one house bore witness to cruelty and neglect so severe it defies understanding. This girl's days were measured not by the rising and setting of the sun, but by the cold metal bars that trapped her, by the endless hours spent in confinement, and by the cruel hands of those who vowed to care for her. But it was not just imprisonment, the suffering went far beyond, leaving scars deeper than anyone could see. Nestled in Gloucester Township, New Jersey, a place where neighbors wave hello, children play in backyards, and everyday life hums along quietly, something dark had been unfolding for years behind closed doors. It was here that an unimaginable horror went unnoticed, hidden beneath the calm surface of suburban normality. The victim was an 18-year-old girl, someone who should have been growing up surrounded by love and safety. Instead, for 7 years she lived a nightmare. Her childhood stolen, her world reduced to 4 walls and the cold confines of a dog crate. This young girl was held captive by Brenda Spencer, her own mother, and Branndon Mosley, her stepfather. Their names now echo in courtrooms and headlines, but back then, they were simply the people trusted to protect and nurture. The crimes they are accused of are horrific. Imprisoning a child, confining her to a dog cage for a year, subjecting her to relentless physical and sexual abuse, isolating her from any human contact, and neglecting her most basic needs. This story begins around 2018 when the girl was pulled out of school in the 6th grade, disappearing from the world outside the home. From that moment on, her life became one of silence and secrecy. 4 years she was trapped, sometimes locked inside a tiny dog crate, other times chained in a bathroom with nothing but a bucket for a toilet. An alarm system was installed to ensure she could not escape without immediate detection. The house itself was far from a home. It was a place of squalor, cluttered with animals, dogs, chinchillas, and neglect. The conditions mirrored the darkness that lived inside those walls. It wasn't until May 2025 that this hidden world shattered. After years of enduring abuse and isolation, the girl found a moment of courage, an opening, and escaped. Her desperate flight led to the involvement of local authorities, who uncovered the full extent of the cruelty and neglect. Brenda Spencer and Branndon Mosley were arrested, facing a long list of charges that revealed a story more horrifying than many could have imagined. To stay updated on more true crime cases like this, please subscribe to Crime Network Files. We bring you carefully researched, deeply human stories that matter. Also, tell us in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there. It's amazing to connect with viewers from all over the world. The story truly begins when the young girl was in 6th grade. Around 2018, something changed abruptly in her life. She was withdrawn from school. Unlike most children who attend classrooms filled with friends, lessons, and laughter, her days would no longer include the outside world. Officially, she was homeschooled, but this wasn't a choice made for education or nurturing. It was a calculated move to isolate her completely. Homeschooling in many families is a way to tailor education and provide safety, but in this case, it became a tool of control and confinement. Her contact with the outside world was cut off, leaving her invisible to neighbors, teachers, and even relatives. This was the beginning of years shrouded in silence and solitude. For roughly a year she was confined in a space no child should ever know, a dog crate. This was not a crate used temporarily or for safety but a cage where she spent endless hours trapped. Imagine the cold metal bars closing in, the limited room to move, the absence of light and comfort. It was a prison within a home, where her freedom, dignity, and childhood were stripped away piece by piece. The physical toll was devastating, but the emotional weight was even heavier. Days bled into nights without the simple relief of companionship or warmth. The silence was broken only by the harsh reality of her confinement, a punishment that tested every fiber of her being. There was no laughter, no childhood innocence, only a stark, relentless imprisonment. Eventually, the method of confinement shifted. The dog crate was replaced by another form of captivity, a bathroom with a padlock on the door. There she was chained, literally bound in a locked room, unable to escape. The bathroom was bare and cold, devoid of any comfort. The only semblance of a toilet was a bucket, a humiliating reminder of her isolation and neglect. This room, cold and empty, became her world for long stretches of time. Every sound outside that locked door was a reminder of her separation from normal life. She was watched constantly, monitored by an alarm system designed to alert her captors the moment she tried to leave. Her movements were not her own, they were dictated by fear and control. The conditions inside the home were bleak. The house was cluttered and unclean, filled with animals that added to the chaos and squalor. Dogs and chinchillas roamed freely, while the girl remained confined to her stark spaces. There was no warmth, no nurture, only neglect. Throughout this period, the young girl's existence was reduced to survival. Her needs were ignored, her pain was hidden. And while the world around her moved on with everyday life, she was trapped in a nightmare that few could imagine. Behind the closed doors of that house, the young girl's suffering deepened far beyond isolation. The cruelty was no longer just physical confinement, it became a relentless cycle of abuse that left marks visible and invisible. Physical punishment was a constant threat. The girl endured beatings, often inflicted with a belt. The sting of each blow was not only pain on her skin but a brutal reminder of her powerlessness. These punishments were meant to control and intimidate, to break her spirit and enforce silence. Each lash was a message. Resistance would be met with violence. Yet the horrors did not stop there. The stepfather, Branndon Mosley, subjected her to acts that no child should ever endure. The abuse was deeply personal and violated her in the most devastating ways. Though the details are painful to recount, this abuse was a violation of trust and humanity, compounding the isolation and fear that had already consumed her life. Within the same household where the older girl endured years of confinement, a younger child lived under the shadow of similar circumstances. This 13-year-old girl had also been pulled out of school and homeschooled by Brenda Spencer. But homeschooling here was not a path to knowledge or growth. It was another layer of isolation, another wall separating her from the outside world. Like her older sister, she was kept away from any meaningful contact with friends, teachers, or neighbors. Her days were confined within the same household, cut off from the support systems that might have noticed signs of trouble. The veil of homeschooling became a tool not for education but for secrecy. The family dynamic revealed a disturbing pattern of control and neglect. Both children lived lives dictated by fear and restriction, bound by rules that kept them hidden and vulnerable. The adults in charge enforced strict boundaries, and any attempt at connection beyond the house was systematically shut down. Brenda Spencer and Branndon Mosley's family life was far from the ordinary. On the surface, they seemed like a typical suburban family, but beneath that facade lay dysfunction and control that allowed such cruelty to flourish in silence. The reasons behind this secrecy remain complex, but it's clear that these children were caught in a cycle of abuse sustained by isolation and fear. While the exact motivations remain unclear, it is evident that homeschooling served as a shield for this family's dark reality, a way to avoid scrutiny and maintain control. In doing so, they stripped their children of opportunities for social interaction, safety, and a normal childhood. This younger girl's existence under these conditions highlights a heartbreaking truth. This was not an isolated horror but part of a larger, deeply troubling family environment. After 7 years of suffering, isolation, and torment, a moment of hope finally arrived, a crack in the dark wall that had confined the young girl for so long. The 18-year-old, now a woman who had endured unimaginable cruelty, found a way out. It was a rare moment when the oppressive surveillance, the chains, and the constant control didn't tighten their grip. For the first time in years, she saw a chance for freedom and she seized it. It is not entirely clear what gave her the strength to act. Maybe it was the quiet hope that remained inside her, buried deep under the years of suffering. Maybe it was the overpowering need to escape the endless cage of her life. Whatever the reason, she found a way to break free from the clutches of her captors. She didn't hesitate. She ran. The path to freedom was not easy, nor was it without its dangers. The girl fled the home in a desperate rush, but the world outside, the life she had once known, felt like a foreign place now. The fear of what might happen to her once her escape was discovered was overwhelming. But the terror of staying in that house, under the control of Brenda Spencer and Branndon Mosley, was even greater. Once free from the house, her immediate action was simple but life-changing. She sought help. Her first stop was a nearby neighbor, someone who would finally listen, someone who could act when she could not. With trembling hands and a voice broken from years of silence, she reached out to those who could make her world whole again. The neighbor, horrified by what they heard, immediately contacted the authorities. Law enforcement arrived soon after, responding to the urgent call for help. The police were prepared for something severe, but what they found upon entering the home exceeded their worst fears. As they walked through the door, they were confronted by the squalid, chaotic conditions of the house. But the real horror lay behind the doors where the girl had been held. They discovered the hidden bathroom, the locked door, the chains, the remnants of a life spent in confinement. What they found wasn't just a house, it was a tomb, a prison. The presence of the second child, still confined in her own version of hell, added another layer of tragedy to an already incomprehensible situation. The girl's escape and the police's subsequent discovery were just the beginning. As the investigation unfolded, authorities pieced together the chilling story of a mother and stepfather who had taken everything from these children, their freedom, their dignity, their futures. But the brave escape of one of those children shattered the false reality the couple had built. In the days that followed, official statements were released, underscoring the severity of the abuse and the shock felt by those who were now investigating the crime. Law enforcement officials called it one of the most disturbing cases they had encountered in years. The police chief remarked, "This is not a case we see often. It is truly a tragedy, and we are thankful this young woman was able to escape before worse could happen." First responders, too, spoke of the shock they felt as they arrived at the scene. The conditions they discovered were beyond their expectations, but their priority was clear: to ensure the safety and well-being of the victims and secure the home as evidence. With each new detail revealed, the scope of the abuse came into sharper focus, and the magnitude of the crimes committed became undeniable. For the 18-year-old girl, the road to recovery would be long, but her escape marked the end of years of suffering. The moment she stepped into freedom was not just an escape from physical confinement, but from a life of fear and pain. It was the beginning of her journey toward healing, and although the scars would never fully fade, she had reclaimed something no one could ever take from her again: her life. As investigators pieced together the horrifying reality of what had been happening in that house, it was equally crucial to understand the individuals responsible for this torment. Brenda Spencer, a mother who should have been a protector, and Branndon Mosley, the man who chose to become a part of this abuse, were the two faces behind the unimaginable cruelty. Brenda Spencer, 38 years old, was a woman who, at one point, held the responsibility of caring for her children. But somewhere along the way, that maternal instinct, the very thing that should have guided her decisions, was lost, replaced by a disturbing desire for control. Spencer's background offers few clues to what could have driven her to this point. Reports on her past mention that she had struggled with certain personal issues, but nothing suggested the depths of cruelty that she would later inflict on her own flesh and blood. The decision to homeschool her children was, in retrospect, a dangerous one. While homeschooling can be an effective educational choice, in this case, it became a tool for isolation. No one outside the home could see what was happening behind those closed doors. What should have been a safe environment for the children turned into a nightmare, and Spencer was the architect of their prison. Her relationship with Branndon Mosley, a man who would later be implicated in the abuse, allowed this cruelty to fester. Together, they created a world where the children's voices were silenced, and their cries went unheard. Spencer's role as a mother was twisted beyond recognition, and the outcome of her choices led to irreversible consequences. Branndon Mosley, 41, was the man who stood by Spencer, complicit in the abuse and neglect of the children. On the outside, he appeared to live an ordinary life. By day, he worked as a train conductor for SEPTA, a job that many would consider respectable and stable. To those who knew him in public, Mosley was just another member of the community, seemingly dependable and trustworthy. However, the duality of his life could not be starker. While he wore the uniform of a public servant, inside the home he was a predator. He subjected the young girl to unspeakable abuse, exploiting his position of trust within the family. He too was responsible for creating the environment of fear and control that held the children captive. The public reaction to Mosley's involvement in this case has been one of shock and disbelief. The revelation that a SEPTA train conductor, someone who interacted with the public daily, could also be capable of such horrific acts, has left the community reeling. Many expressed their disgust and betrayal when news broke, unable to reconcile the image of the man they thought they knew with the dark truth that was unfolding. SEPTA has since suspended Mosley pending an administrative review, but for many, the damage is done. A man who had been a part of the city's public transportation system is now associated with one of the most egregious cases of child abuse the area has seen in years. The abuse did not happen overnight. It was a carefully constructed web of control, secrecy, and manipulation. The homeschooling that Brenda Spencer claimed was for her children's education was, in fact, a vehicle for isolation. It kept the children away from any outside scrutiny, preventing teachers, neighbors, and even distant relatives from seeing the signs of what was really happening behind closed doors. Isolation is one of the most effective methods of controlling a victim. It strips them of their ability to reach out for help, forces them to endure abuse in silence, and makes them believe they are utterly alone. The girl, removed from school, was cut off from any form of social interaction. The outside world, where empathy, concern, and understanding might have been found, was now a distant, unreachable place. She was trapped not only by the physical chains but by the mental ones her captors had constructed. Branndon Mosley's involvement in the isolation process went further than just supporting Spencer's decisions. He actively participated in maintaining the control. He was the one who enforced the rules of confinement, the one who made sure the girl stayed locked away when she attempted to escape. The surveillance system, an alarm placed on the door to notify them of any movement, was his idea as much as it was Spencer's. Every move was monitored, every step was controlled. This system of surveillance was just one way the couple ensured their victim remained in their grasp. Any attempt at breaking free, any fleeting moment of resistance, was immediately suppressed. The mental anguish caused by constant monitoring was just as damaging as the physical abuse. Brenda Spencer and Branndon Mosley were quickly taken into custody and charged with an array of serious crimes. The charges leveled against them included first-degree kidnapping, a charge reserved for the most severe forms of unlawful confinement. They also faced accusations of aggravated assault, reflecting the physical violence inflicted upon the victim, and conspiracy, indicating the two acted together to commit these crimes. Additionally, both were charged with child endangerment, acknowledging the reckless disregard for the welfare of the children in their care. Branndon Mosley faced additional deeply serious charges related specifically to sexual assault. These allegations further underscored the horrifying breach of trust and the abuse of power within the family. Such charges carry heavy penalties and reflect the profound harm inflicted upon the victim. The arrest took place on May 11, 2025. Since then, both Spencer and Mosley have been held at the Camden County Correctional Facility. They await detention hearings, during which the court will decide on matters such as bail and further legal proceedings. Given the severity of the allegations, the likelihood of release is slim, and the justice system is preparing for a complex, lengthy case. Camden County Prosecutor Grace McCauley, speaking publicly about the case, did not mince words. She described the situation as one of the most despicable cases she had encountered in her career. Her words captured the horror of the abuse and the urgency with which the legal system must respond. She emphasized the importance of holding those responsible fully accountable and ensuring the safety and recovery of the victims. Following such arrests, standard legal procedures include thorough investigations, gathering of evidence, and pretrial motions. Given the nature of these crimes, courts often schedule multiple hearings before a trial date is set. The process can be long, but it is designed to protect the rights of all parties while delivering justice. The legal battle ahead will be closely watched by the community, victims' advocates, and the public alike. It serves as a stark reminder of the responsibilities entrusted to caregivers and the importance of vigilance when signs of abuse are suspected. News of the horrific abuse that unfolded in Gloucester Township quickly spread beyond local borders, capturing the attention of national media and igniting widespread outrage. Major outlets such as CBS News, NBC Philadelphia, ABC News, and Fox 29 dedicated extensive coverage to the story, bringing the grim details to light and giving voice to the victims. The community, once quiet and unaware, was rocked to its core. Neighbors who had passed the house countless times expressed disbelief and heartbreak, struggling to reconcile their memories of an ordinary neighborhood with the dark reality that had been hidden within. Many spoke of feeling betrayed, not only by the perpetrators but also by a system that failed to detect the abuse sooner. On social media platforms, the response was swift and impassioned. Hashtags calling for justice trended as people from all over the country voiced their anger and sorrow. Comment sections filled with pleas for the victims and demands for stronger protections against child abuse. Many users shared stories of personal or familial experiences with abuse, underscoring the urgent need for awareness and change. This case also reignited debates about homeschooling laws and child protection policies. While homeschooling is a valid and important educational choice for many families, critics pointed out how it can sometimes be misused to isolate children from outside oversight. Advocates called for tighter regulations and more frequent welfare checks to prevent children from slipping through the cracks. Several child welfare organizations released statements condemning the abuse and expressing solidarity with the victims. Groups like the National Child Protection Alliance emphasize the importance of community vigilance and systemic reform, urging authorities to learn from this tragedy to better safeguard vulnerable children in the future. In the midst of public grief and anger, there was also a call to action, a determination that this case should not be forgotten and that it must lead to meaningful change. The voices raised in response to this tragedy serve as a powerful reminder of the collective responsibility to protect children and hold perpetrators accountable. The harrowing story from Gloucester Township has cast a stark light on the vulnerabilities within child protection systems, revealing how abuse can hide in plain sight, especially when isolation and secrecy shield victims from the outside world. This case has prompted urgent discussions about the oversight of homeschooling, a practice growing in popularity but often lacking in uniform regulation. Authorities face significant challenges in detecting abuse when children are withdrawn from public schools. Without regular contact with teachers, counselors, and peers who might notice warning signs, many children remain invisible to mandated reporters. This gap in oversight can leave victims trapped in dangerous situations for years, as was tragically demonstrated here. This case also fits into a broader and distressing pattern seen across many communities, where neglect and abuse persist behind closed doors, fueled by isolation and manipulation. It serves as a painful reminder that child abuse is not confined to any one demographic, location, or family structure. The systems designed to protect often rely heavily on external visibility, and when that is removed, children become increasingly vulnerable. In response to the public outcry and the case's chilling revelations, many advocates and lawmakers have called for reforms. Proposals include stricter regulations on homeschooling, more frequent welfare checks, and enhanced training for educators and social workers to identify subtle signs of abuse. There is also growing momentum for improved communication between agencies and increased resources to support vulnerable families before situations escalate. While no policy change can undo the suffering endured, this tragedy has become a catalyst for change, a painful but necessary step toward preventing future cases. It challenges communities, authorities, and policymakers alike to reconsider how child welfare is safeguarded, especially in homes that remain hidden from view. The hope is that through awareness, vigilance, and reform, the broken pieces of this story can be a foundation for stronger protection, ensuring that no child will again be left trapped and unheard. Behind every headline, every statistic, and every court charge, there is a human story, one marked by pain, courage, and the enduring will to survive. The young girl who escaped captivity in Gloucester Township is not just a victim, she is a survivor. The emotional and psychological toll of 7 years trapped in such horrific conditions is unimaginable. Years of isolation and abuse leave deep scars, often invisible to the outside world. Trauma like hers can affect every part of a person's life: trust, self-worth, relationships, and mental health. Recovery is not simply a matter of time but of patience, care, and unwavering support. It requires the presence of compassionate people and resources dedicated to healing. Her journey toward healing will be long and fraught with challenges, but it is also a testament to human resilience. Despite everything, she found the strength to escape, to reach out for help, and to reclaim her life. Her bravery shines as a beacon of hope for others who may be suffering in silence. This story calls on all of us, not only as viewers but as members of a community, to remain vigilant. Abuse often thrives in silence and secrecy. It is our collective responsibility to notice the signs, to listen when someone reaches out, and to support those who are vulnerable. Let this be a reminder that awareness, compassion, and action can save lives. Together we can help ensure that no child feels invisible, unheard, or alone. Thank you for staying with us through this difficult story. Please share it with others to raise awareness, and remember, vigilance, compassion, and action can help save lives. We want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on this case, and what can we do as a community to prevent abuse and protect the most vulnerable among us? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's start a respectful conversation about awareness, prevention, and support for survivors. If you're passionate about bringing these stories to light and learning how we can all make a difference, be sure to subscribe to Crime Network Files. Don't forget to turn on the notifications so you never miss an update on this case or similar true crime stories. By sharing this video, you're helping raise awareness about the importance of vigilance, compassion, and the responsibility we all share in safeguarding those who cannot protect themselves. Together we can ensure that these stories are heard and that justice is done. Thank you for watching and for standing with the victims.